Welcome to part 8 of our own Uniqueness series. And today, Maida and I are going to be focusing on diversity, inclusion, and equality matters when it comes to career women and female entrepreneurs. And we hope this topic resonates with you. You may have heard before that you are not your background, your ethnicity, your body, or your title. Yet, somehow we've all experienced this impression that we have been held back at some point, for one reason or another. So to start off with, we are going to pose a question to you. How has your cultural, social, economic, and environmental upbringing shaped who you have become now? And do you feel empowered or disempowered as a result of it? Okay, so that's just food for thought. And we're going to make this more of like a conversational topic to start off with Maida and I. We just thought that it will also give you an opportunity to learn a little bit more about our experiences, especially in terms of this topic. So it will be us answering questions. And the first one, we've posed a question to you, and then the first one that goes to us as well. I'm going to ask this question to Maida. So how has being different, that's if you see yourself as being different, shaped who you have become on a personal and professional level?
It's of course an excellent question, and that I will be asking you as well, Chico. For me, it took me a very long time to get there. Possibly and mainly because I used to live in France, and not being recognized as a real French person was very difficult for me, because I always had the impression that I had to prove myself. Then going to London, same thing, English and French, how much they play cat and mouse. And then coming into the US in 2003, where the US and France were not exactly the best friends. There were a lot of jokes happening. There was a lot of hurt feelings as well. So for me, being French and Syrian has always held me back, in the sense where I always felt ashamed of who I was. How did that hold me back? Because I always felt the need to compensate and do more. And I spent my life proving to other people that I'm a nice person, I'm open-minded, I work hard, and I give it 1,000% to the job, only to prove that I am not different, actually. How it is today is very different. Now that I have this gift of hindsight, I'm actually vive la différence. And the main reason is that we're talking about it today is that I see the richness, and I see how throughout my life, all my friends actually came from different backgrounds, from different ethnicity, from different cultures. And that's really what I enjoy in them, is them bringing a kind of new, how can I say that? A new knowledge or richness, or the melting pot that you create around yourself. So now it's your turn, Chico. How being different shaped your life?
I can resonate to what you're sharing and the things that come for me, just in terms of that it's been, I think, a huge learning experience, and it hasn't been easy. And as you were talking, the things that came to mind for me have been accent, name, appearance, education, and travel. The latter two being things that have like empowered me. But just in terms of, like, let's say accent, name, and appearance, I was born in the UK. I lived in Malawi, and I grew up in the US. I studied in Switzerland. So in all those different environments, at some level, I had to adjust in one way or another, just due to those factors. Even in Malawi, which is dominantly, you see that it's Black people, but still initially I was different because they used to say to me, I speak the Queen's language.
That's
So
excellent.
I was labeled different. I was bullied in school by kids because I didn't speak the local language. And in the US, it was also similar, adjusting in terms of having like a different name. But just in terms of all those overall experiences, I think education and travel have empowered me in a sense is that my parents, like from a very young age, they were, I think they were just these free spirits who went from place to place. And I never felt, I guess this is what we're going to talk about in the next one, whether we felt limited by external factors or not, culturally, socially, environmentally, and politically. And for me, no, because due to travel, I've always felt empowered that I could go into any given environment, regardless of my background and all those other factors that define who I am, including being a woman as well. And I don't know if you've ever felt held back or limited in any given environment, Maida.
I actually did, and I admire what you're saying, because in my head I was telling myself I wish I had this wisdom. What has happened is that my parents, having had to leave Syria at a difficult moment in their lives and in their career, when we arrived in France, they carried a lot of shame with being different as well. So I inherited of this idea that you have to apologize for who you are, and you have to prove to other people that you're not that different, that you have the same values as them, that you can work as hard as them, and you end up almost bullying yourself. Not only were we bullied, I saw my parents being bullied, and I was bullied at school because I had a very difficult name to understand. Plus, I was speaking French at that time with an accent for 2 months in my life. But although culturally I was more knowledgeable and more learned than most of the French people, even who were much more advanced than me, thanks to my education, I always felt that I wasn't worthy of being part of the community, and that is something that really held me back. As to being a woman, that has never been a factor to me, because the way I was brought up is that I was born in a family where being a female or a male was completely irrelevant. Is everybody had to work, everybody had to to go to school to complete as high as education, and in the workplace, wherever I would come, I only had literally one person in my whole career, actually two persons, but one that I never really worked much with. But I only had one person in my whole 16 years of career in banking. And before even in banking, only one person made comments on me being a female. Nobody else has ever commented on me not being smart enough, or not being this, or not being enough of that, or holding me back because I was a woman. There were external factors outside my own managers that made it very difficult for me to probably be promoted, and because I was, again, a foreigner and a woman. If you look at who was promoted, that's how I know. But again, I don't know. What I know is that for me, and this is maybe something that I would like also to transmit in this talk, is don't assume. Just go and ask for what you want, and don't stay. And that was my promise to myself. Don't let yourself be limited by what you think, people think of you. Just go for it and ask for it.
Definitely, and that resonates with me so well as well too. Just in terms of, I think part of the adventure has also been growing in my own skin, and like you, feeling less unapologetic, just in terms of otherness. So where people feel like they may not understand you because you're different, because when you carry or you internalize a lot, just in terms of having to apologize, just in terms of your name, your qualifications, how you sound like, to me, that always felt like it feels heavy. I'd prefer to let go of it and then each and every encounter that I experience, it's that person. It's more to do with their being rather than more about me. Because trust me, I've had so many interesting, so many interesting and unique encounters, and some of them very exhausting encounters where I've had to explain over and over about my background, who I am, where I belong, and such and such. But pushing beyond all of that, I think for me, when it comes to equality and diversity, and like Maida, you're mentioning as well, it's about, walking into certain places, including like a work environment, and owning that environment, regardless of what's going on out there. And that's what we were going to talk about. And it's about women, us, how we feel empowered, especially in places or spaces where we may feel like who we are as an identity. Sometimes we may feel challenged or disempowered by our encounters, including travel, which can be unique on so many on so many different levels. So I'm going to let Maida take us into the discussion bit.
Thank you, Chico. So let's talk first about how we are conditioned in a way into feeling different. And for us, as we were discussing, there are several factors. There's the obvious factor, which is the cultural factor. This is, the inheritance of your body, of your gender, of your skin type, but also your personal family beliefs and your core values. This is when we feel we are different because we don't think the same way as other people. The second one is coming from a different socioeconomical background, or not having done the same studies or the same schoolings as other people. This also shows up as well when we are at work, when we are in our personal relationship. We tend to want to stay within the people that we feel are more understanding of our background. And finally, it's all about the environment. And sometimes we also feel different because we are women, or we feel different because we come from entrepreneurships or from a corporate background. But all in, it's about taking ownership of who we are and to push beyond how we have been defined by others. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Chico, is don't let situations limit you. And if this happens, and I'm sure it happened, and I'm sure this happened in the past to many, many of us, is what situations and what have you learned from it? And how can you make sure that should this situation happen again, you don't feel limited by your difference? So how do you feel from your side, Chico? What are the lessons you have learned, and what are the ways to go around this kind of feeling not worthy to be with other people because we put them on a pedestal, or we feel that they are better than us, than ourselves?
I think it's about cultivating your own personal growth. Okay, overall, so it's your well-being, your mindset, your personal development. And the first one that comes to mind is, we've listed a few key pointers, is not staying in your community. That in itself, I can understand, because even like my parents' generation, it's so easy just to be in a community because it's comforting, because it's safe. But it's about also pushing beyond and outside those communities to embrace otherness, to understand what's different. And in that in itself also like can then empower you to then start owning who you are amongst difference, and seeing other people as equal to rather than a threat. And in this one, I think for me, just in terms of community, what has helped me, I think, shape me as well is my own community. But outside of that community, and Maida mentioned it before, is education. And I think also education was like a bubble wrap for me, because my environment was mainly kids from diverse backgrounds and private schools. So a little bit of a safety cushion in that sense. And university was similar, that we all had what I would call like a global citizen type outlook, where we already had this unspoken communication as a community. We understood and accepted our difference, and we felt comfortable in that. Okay, so it's just when we went beyond those, although it was large communities, going outside of those boundaries, there were things that started to be an eye opener to me, which was, oh, I'm different. And this is how I'm received in other communities, but that still is not a threat because people fear what they don't know. And that still shouldn't prevent you from experiencing going and when we can experiencing the world, you know, and yeah, taking that on a one-to-one level rather than what you may hear on the news or socially, and to steer it based on your intuitive drive, what connects with you authentically more than anything else. And it's well, the other thing that came to mind as well was about role models whose journeys are similar or different to yours. And Maida, what resonates most with you in terms of role models?
Well, for me, it's mostly looking at people who, as you said, has the same journey, or creating a composite of people who had pieces of your journeys as well, and see how from their side they were able to overcome this hurdle of being different. I'm always in awe when I see athletes who lost a leg, but they are able to compete in the Olympics. It makes me almost you know, it gives me a different perspective on where things are going. And I think today, if we are in a more and more open to diversity world, so finding role models is looking at, for example, if we are women, right? You have Christine Lagarde, you have Mrs. Merkel, you have a lot of role models of female politicians and leaders in corporates or in entrepreneurs who were able to defy all odds, especially in politics when you think about it, and to get where they are. And for me, they don't feel pushy. They feel very at ease in their own skin. And this is what I want to see as well, is that it's not a battle, it's not a war, it's part of your process. We all have come here on earth with several challenges to overcome, and certainly the skin and the gender, whichever it is, right? Even when you think that being this or that is, it could be easier in certain instances, but we all have these little things that make us different. We all have challenges that are pushing us to learn something and to go outside our comfort zone in a way. And this leads us as well to something that we discuss as well, Chico, is that we need also to be aware of our own biases, because we have, it's a human thing, right? We like people who are like us. But one of the things that I would like to stress out as well is the fact that we sometimes think that the difference is a form of threat, is a form of competition. We see life as a pie. If the other person has a piece of pie, this is a piece that I will not have, or there will be less to me. This has been a kind of thread throughout our conversation as well. I would like for us, all of us, to acknowledge our biases and to push through it, to work with other people rather than always, when possible, not against them. I would like also to have your perspective on that, Chico, because we have a lot of similarity in terms of a lot of parallels, but obviously what we have experienced is different as well.
Yeah, so it's just as you said, in terms of moving beyond our biases. So for me, it's the prescriptive and implicit biases, and some of those are inherited. And they also can be found in communities, work environments, work environments where we used to be familiar. So it's also thinking about when you're in work environments, how do you accept what is unfamiliar, what feels uncomfortable, and what feels different. And in terms of entrepreneurship obviously would challenge you to go to many different environments. And that's the best way to grow. And part of my experience has been also in terms of accepting difference. When you go to the events, like public speaking events, for instance, or any form of events that you're excited about, business, whatever remit it may be for you, you're thrown into the deep end because they're people from all walks of life. Okay, and that starts to challenge your outlook. And I encourage you to step beyond your professional career. And when it's okay to do that beyond the pandemic, to go and experience those events if you haven't, or even just to start off now online, to understand perspective of other people where you haven't had that much exposure. And there's still a lot more of us who still haven't had that much exposure to moving beyond biases based on what we're already familiar with, like from the news and from like our own communities as well. And the other thing I was thinking about is that we've also have a lot of things just in terms of communities for women, including marches, International Women's Day. But for me, it's like beyond International Women's Day. It's like, how do you continue to support other women beyond those movements? Okay, beyond the challenges that we go through, are you still continuing to support them, like in social media platforms, on encounters, rather than them being competitive, you're seeing them as healthy competition, still continuing to support. So it's continuing to remain fully aware, letting go of self-limiting beliefs. And we're moving on into the key takeaways, which is the first thing that comes to mind is also about being open to leaping outside of the comfort zone. Okay, that's what comes to mind. And being curious about otherness, what's out there. And what else comes to mind for you, Oneida?
I 1000% what you just mentioned. And I'm going to go again into, first of all, the self-awareness is be in control of how you define yourself, be aware of our own biases because they exist, but also know your sense of self, know your self-worth. Know, again, as you introduced this talk, Chico, is that we're not a body, we're not a title, we are some of a lot of different things. We're very rich humans with a lot of rich experiences as well. And this is, for me, the most important. And this is, when we think about it, what led us to do this series as well, is don't be ashamed to be who you are. Own your uniqueness. You may come from an underprivileged background, but celebrate your journey. Celebrate how difficult it was for you to get up to speed, to educate yourself when maybe your parents were not people who understood what you were doing, and now you are where you are. Same with gender, same with any kind of difference. So vive la différence. Let's celebrate being unique. It doesn't make us necessarily special. It doesn't give us any particular kind of entitlement in a way. But what it does give us is a sense of openness to others. It gives us a sense of compassion. It gives us empathy. And as you said, for us, Chico, it gives us this desire to be of service, to help other women, to support other women, and to share each other, being more into collaboration and working together rather than seeing everything as a competition and as, a battle.
Oh, that's a very nice way to put it. And I think to end off, one of the last things that's on my mind at the moment is that, to conclude, it's also not negating anybody's experience, just in terms of the hardships or the challenges that you may come across. It's more about how do you push through those challenges as your own personal individual, aligning it with your vision, your reason why for living, your purpose. Despite all the external factors that are going on, is how can you still continue to fulfill the things that make you feel holistic as a human being, and to be able to contribute in spaces where you're able to add more meaningful value, and where you're challenged, it's about how you clearly communicate that, but not to the detriment of your own mental health and physical well-being. If it's not working, it's not working. It's about how you push through that, and be open to that there's opportunities that will suit you at the right time as well. Okay, so to end off, and as a reminder, we do stream our series on YouTube, and you'll always find links below our videos, including our community, where you will find additional useful resources, educational resources of tips, and a wealth of information that we've both learned on our personal and professional development. And we hope this topic itself has sparked something within you. Do feel free to engage, interact. We'd love to hear from you as well. And we'll end it off here, and we look forward to you joining us on the next series. Bye from me for now, and thank you, Maida.
And thank you, thank you, Chico. Thank you for everything. And I want to celebrate as well who you are today as well, because you are the sum of a lot of the things that we all aspire to be as well. So thank you.
Likewise, everything that you've said, yes. It's the same for you. I'm lost for words. I don't know why, but likewise, it's a mutual feeling. And I'm still continuing to enjoy this journey, because we do learn a lot from each other. As much as we speak in the background, there's some things like when we're interacting in our series that I'm like, oh, wow, I'm learning things which are, to me, I'm learning a lot from you as well. And growing through it. Thank you.